And welcome back to Cisco Knowledge Base. This is Zach from Content Security Team. Got some exciting news. So we are start testing our new beta, which is version 8.5 release for web security appliances. And it has some major enhancement in functionality and some minor enhancement. I would like to go and provide some guidelines and some of the outlines as to what are this new functionality will be available. So first thing first, the documentation. The new functionality detail during the beta is posted to set of users on the first link. Once this availability is for all our customers, it will be posted over here in this link, which equates to our end user guides area for web security appliance that have listed for all the current one. So currently it's 8.0.6 is the limited availability release called FCS as well. That's where all the user guide will go in once it's available. So what I have done is I posted these functionality on a numerical order, and we'll run through it and provide a very brief description for each one of them. So the first one is the VRRP, which is Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. This is the IEEE method of doing HSRP, which is known as Hot Standby Routing Protocol. The specification for VRRP has been listed on RFC 5798, has all the details and how this function should work. Second is the Virtual SMA, version 8.4.x release will be available soon. That will allow us to manage all virtual email appliance, web security appliance, and physical appliance as well. Number 3 is the support for bandwidth and quota times, and that's where for administrator they've been requesting for a long time, where we can tie some time-based access list and the quota for the day or for the hour for that matter. Number 4 is also a very useful feature set, which is machine ID based authentication. One key thing to note, this functionality will be available only on the cloud connector mode. So with the machine ID based authentication, I can use a client machine ID instead of IP address or their user ID from the Active Directory servers to authenticate. So machine ID based could be very useful for the standalone servers where these machine ID will not change as the IP can change, and administrator can create a policy based on that. LDAP external authentication, that's the for a lot of environment where the authentication is in a centralized database that we can sync up as a web security appliance, can sync up with the external authentication servers and have a single point for authentication management. Moving on, number 6 is the AAA audit log. So currently today we do several logs. There's the CLI logs, then we have a GUI log, then we have a system log, FTP log. The AAA audit log will provide a single point where we can compile all that information for administrator to go in and review what happened in real time, what's happening on the real time, and also if they're troubleshooting a past event that occurred. Enhanced licensing for virtual appliance. There are some subtle licensing changes where currently we use only for an entire file, but this will allow us to, we can add a feature on top of it, if not just the entire file to replace, to add a new function, a new feature ability. 64-bit SMA, 2048-bit certificate supports. Up until now, if we generate a certificate on web security appliance, it's only 1024-bit, but now we can support 2048-bit as well. And just for the background, we always supported uploading a 2048, but not to generating through the web security appliance, which it does now. Then provisioning for virtual SMA and virtual WSA, that allows you to use the disk space on demand as opposed to allocate entire resources. Last but not least, the AMP, which is the Advanced Malware Protection. We already have in place today with the phase 1. Phase 2 added some more functionality in terms of what we can do in additional functions with the AMP, so make it a little bit more secure. Multiple file scanning, for example. One thing I'm going to make a note, as it stands today, there are no configuration migration tool from physical SMA to virtual SMA. For those customers, they've been using our migration tools from physical WSA to virtual WSA. It was released last year or so, year and a half ago now. So in the essence where we have a physical SMA, we migrating to virtual SMA, these configuration were required to do manually at this point. So what we'll do at this point is we'll go over the brief description of each functionality, so what that will describe. So VRRP, as we said, is the Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. All it is, it allows you to network management protocol that used to increase availability. It's the single default gateway that's serving the host on the same subnet. So if we have a WSA1 and WSA2, then we can use the default gateway, which is as in VRRP virtual IP address, and that can be the gateway for all the users. So to configure it, this functionality, high availability, we can look at it is under failover config on the CLI, we can do that, or from the GUI, it goes into network and high availability. Transaction logs, so the information that logs under for all the high availability, it's under system log. Let's take a look at quick. So we'll go under network, high availability, and that's where we'll add the failover group for VRRP. It requires all the functionality being configured from here. So after the overview, what we'll do is there are in works that we will go together and put a virtual VRRP configuration video KB. So this way we can go from A to Z on VRRP, how to configure it, how to troubleshoot. But this section is just the overview. Virtual SMA, as we said, intended is to have an OVF that applied and deployed through the vCenter or vSpre client, just like today we have for virtual WSA and virtual ESA. And it supports both physical appliance and virtual appliance on the ESA or WSA side. Support for both bandwidth and time quotas. This definitely allows as a time and volume quotas allow for WSA administrator to configure policy. I can restrict based on the time or amount of data, bits and bytes, and this traffic can be applied for HTTP, HTTPS, and FTP traffic. So if I have a multiple quotas applied for a single set of users, the most restrictive quota will be used. And when the user identity is not available, then apply per IP address from the client side. So configure it is fairly simple. From the CLI command is this. From the GUI is a Web Security Manager defined time and quota range. Let's take a look. So we'll go under Web Security Manager. define time and quota range. On the top part, which is the add time range, so I can have a time range here. I can be very granular. I can be Mondays through Tuesday, Wednesday, which days I would like to allow. I can also look at the time zone setting or user time. So there's a lot of config. And we'll do a separate video KB for that. And this is for the quotas. The quota that allow you to how much you want to set up. You can do per time, or you can also do volume in a KB, or we can do meg, or we can do a gig, depend on user specific admin specifications. So cancel out of here. Okay, so we'll do a separate video knowledge base for that. Machine ID based authentication. This is important to point it out. This is only available in Cloud Connector mode. And what's the machine based ID authentication? How did you find out the machine ID on Windows? These are the steps from Windows client. You go to computer, properties, computer name. From the Mac, you can go to application, utilities folder, or system folder to get the system information. So for example, this is on the Mac client. I can go application, then to utility, system information. Under system information, we'll have a several sections. We'll go under software, and that's where it shows me the computer name on the Mac client. There is another easier way to do it on a Mac. If just open a shell, CLI, and on the shell, that would be my computer name as well. So there's a couple of ways to do it. Anyway, as far as the config goes, when we look at it, it's fairly simple. It's from the GUI is network, edit, machine identification. Now, here's my machine that is deployed. Let's look at this one. This is deployed in a proxy mode. And if I go under the steps that my notes describes, it says under network and machine identification. So if I go under network, I don't see that option. That option will not be available on a normal proxy mode. I have to be in a cloud connector. So I have another machine that deployed in a cloud connector mode in this code. If you look at here, web proxy status is deployed in a cloud web security connector mode. If I go under network, and machine ID service is available here. Here I can configure the policy based on AD realm and machine ID. And again, we'll do a separate video knowledge base to cover the entire configuration steps and troubleshooting. That brings us to number 5. So LDAP external authentication is very useful, where these external agent service are centralized point of authentication that really helps administrator to control the access to the web security appliance or email security appliance. In order to configure it, you go from the GUI, network, authentication, you have to add a realm, and then you enable external authentication. So in my case, I do have set up an external authentication just to give you the gist of it. Under, let's follow the notes. So once you set up the authentication LDAP realm, you go under system administration and then users. And that's where you set up your external authentication. In my case, I have an LDAP realm that is to a couple of groups, ESA admin and WSA admin. And we'll do a detailed, step-by-step process video knowledge base to cover all aspects of it, so that will make more sense. The logs in this case is the external auth log, pretty straightforward. Okay, AA audit log. This functionality is pretty straightforward but very powerful, that combines all the information for who is doing what on the machine for accounting purpose. We can just go to system administration and add to log subscription another log and audit log. We can put them in a trace mode, or we can put it in informational mode, depending what we're looking for. On the command line, we can do log config and audit log. Enhanced licensing for virtual appliances. So the way the licensing currently, what happens is if the file expires on the virtual box, so if let's take a look at it. So my license expires on July 5th. If I look at my feature key, so all of them have remaining 322 days, and they all expires on July 5th, 2015. What that functionality will allow us to do is to add a feature independent to that file. And also, if the file expires, it will continue to work for the business to continue to case expired license for web proxy service as basic services. So that will give a chance to administrator to go in and request a new license, or if they're already in pipe, then your services will not be interrupted. At the same time, the email alerts notification will continue to administrator regarding the license expiration. So there will still be a reminders keep coming back for admins to pay attention and take an action upon them. Number 8 is minor enhancement, you can call it, is the support for 64-bit SMA to enhance performance. Number 9 is 2048-bit certificate. As we said earlier, up until now, when we generate a certificate on HTTPS proxy, it generates up to 1024-bit. Now we have a capability that when we generate a certificate, it could be 2048-bit certificate, so a little bit more security and algorithm for encryption. To do that, I believe it's the same place as the HTTPS proxies from the GUI, and either use or generate a certificate key. So let's take a look. So security services, and then we'll go to HTTPS proxy. In this case, I did generate a certificate, just a demo cert, and we'll take a look at it to verify it is a 2048-bit. Download that cert. And let's take a look. So here's the certificate that has been generated. And if you look at it, the very first part here, the RSA public key is 2048-bit, right? That's the module. That's the key part. And these are my signature algorithm on the second part here. An actual certificate will start from here to here. So you can parse through it. So the idea is to be a little bit more secure with the higher bit algorithm, the 2048. So this is the 2048 bit encryption that has been supported starting with 8.5 release. Thin provisioning, that is also comes handy. I think we said earlier, thin provisioning relies on demand allocation as opposed to thick provisioning, which is it takes all the disk space at the front of when you're provisioning the first time. So that really helps if you are in a lab environment and you don't have that much storage, but you do want to test the functionality for certain code, that we can do a thin provision as we go, either delete the machine afterward or increase more storage later on. AMP, so this is the Advanced Malware Protection, Phase 2. So some of the additional functionality that it supports is some multiple files scanning and retrospect analysis and reporting, and does not need a new feature key. So if we have a feature keys already enabled, will support the Phase 2. And that's under security services. Let's take a look. So basically under security services, anti-malware protection, and repetition. Security services, anti-malware protection, okay. So this one it does not have. Let's see. I have another machine that it does. Security services, anti-malware. So the config is the same place as our notes discussed. Not there. It's under security services, anti-malware, and repetition. And that's the file repetition and filtering and file analysis. That gives you two functions. These are the two functions. You can choose to take either one or both, or it's better to just use both if you can. It puts a little bit more scanning power to it, and then it gives you the detail exactly how it's been done, and there are other details with it. There are some advanced setting that you can look at it. This is the cloud that it goes to and fetch it from. These are the heartbeat interval. These are the default value. We don't need to change. We can leave it that. These are file analysis, hash, and whatnot. Okay. So with that, that's conclude this presentation. And for the review, all I would like to add here is to the new functionality listed with during the beta testing. This will be posted here. Once we have this release available for our general availability or our FCS or limited availability, this will be posted under user guide for all the functionality which requires to be posted document over here. So it'll be a user guide and also the release notes as well with the new functionality with the entire details. Okay. So with that, thank you so much for joining, and have a great day, have a great afternoon, have a great evening. Thanks again, and look forward to another Knowledge Spice. Thank you.